Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir, and what's on tap for today? Well, we've got a video clip, folks, from the DrPhil show, and we want to do a reaction to it. It's pretty long, so we put it into two parts. This is part one, and it's DrPhil, obviously, Candace Owens. It's got Daniela D'Souza Gill, a conservative. It's also got Amala Ekpunobi, I believe, also a conservative. It also has a liberal leftist-leaning professor by the name of Professor J. Luke Wood. It's also got a comedian, Tyler Fisher, I believe. And the questions they're asking is affirmative action. Is it still valid? Should it still continue? And another question they ask in this segment is, can white people, even though that they're the majority, can they be discriminated against? So folks, let's get to that video right now.
Conservative author and TV host Danielle D'Souza Gill and distinguished professor of education at San Diego State University, Dr. Luke Wood. So welcome to both of you. Now, let me start with you. Is it possible for white people to be discriminated against because they are the majority and discrimination involves power? Is it possible?
Absolutely. It is unequivocally possible. It happens all the time. This actually happens not only in specific instances, but this happens in a systemic way on our most elite college campuses. And I would also say that this is happening not just in education, but in the workplace.
Well, is it justified, though? Because if there has been disparity and if there has been discrimination, if there have been minorities that have been excluded for years and years and years and years, is this the way to start to bring some balance and diversity back to those universities and workplaces?
Before she answers, my answer is absolutely not. And I basically say the sins of the fathers should not be pinned on the sins, to the generations of the sons and daughters. That's all I've got to say, at least for now. Let's hear what Daniela D'Souza Gill says. And she is a daughter of Dinesh D'Souza. So let's see what she has to say.
Absolutely not. Affirmative action has been going on for over 50 years. So this has been happening for a long time. And even now, we've actually seen that it's gotten worse in the sense that race relations are so poisonous. And many people on college campuses actually feel like because of all of this that's happening, they feel like they're being pitted against each other.
Doctor, what do you think?
Well, I think I would very respectfully disagree. I certainly don't think that white people are disadvantaged in college admissions. In fact, I would say it is the exact opposite, which is why there are policies and practices in place now to try to alleviate the historical burden. It's like if you ever played Monopoly before, right? Imagine like you have a person who's playing Monopoly and they get to go around multiple times, right? And then like halfway through the game, someone gets to enter into the game. And then because they get a turn, right, then the accusation is, well, somehow that game is unfair. The kind of accusation, what we would say is reverse racism, we really just view it as what we call race sliding. Race sliding is what happens when gaslighting is racial. And essentially, if you look historically, colleges and universities have prioritized admissions for students who are white. Why is that? When you admit a student, it's oftentimes based upon your grades, high school grades, and your test scores, ACT and SAT, which are being phased out due to COVID-19. But if you think about it, the SAT and ACT have historically measured access to resources, the neighborhood that you grow up in. It is not a measure of a student's drive, a student's motivation. It is really a measure of their access. And ultimately, we know that when things measure access, they really measure white privilege.
Candace?
There we go. Before we get to Candace, white privilege again, right? Oh boy, there it is, the racist thing inside there. And it's called race lighting. It's a racial power of gaslighting. That's what we call it. Boy, these leftists, they come up with all these great terms and terminologies and word salads, basically to throw out there, race lighting. And then he's saying that the SAT and the ACT and all these tests, it's just all about access. It's just about privilege. Has nothing to do with the culture, has nothing to do with study habits, has nothing to do with what is inculcated in children, has nothing to do with the family dynamic where there's a mother and a father inside there. What are you talking about? Why are the Chinese students, why isn't that happening to Chinese students? Why are they not, why are they the ones that are now being discriminated against, right? Why are Japanese students, Pakistani students, Indian students, Arab students, why are they being discriminated against at these elite college institutions in the Ivy League? Their scores are knocked down 200, 300 points. Blacks are given even more points. Hispanics are given even more points. Why? Because they saw about this, because of the lack of equity and equalness inside there, that they need those points. And why? Well, it should be on meritocracy, but they talk about it that it's because there weren't enough libraries there, not enough access. It's all BS, folks. It's just a bunch of bull crap.
Are we compromising standards
Yes.
if we do that because we haven't fixed the problem down the line?
That's correct. It is, the policies are harmful also to the people that they purport to help. And we have all of the evidence there to look at. When you artificially place a Black American into a school in which they do not belong based on their knowledge, doesn't mean that they go on to get A's. In fact, there was a Black adjunct professor, you guys have definitely heard of him, Dr. Thomas Sowell, who was teaching at Cornell University, and he found that the majority of the Black American students that were there were on academic probation. Now, these students were some of the smartest in the nation, but because they were artificially placed amongst their peers at Cornell University, they were failing on academic probation. These policies have never helped Black Americans. It's just basically policies that are put in place to make people feel good, right? I feel like I'm doing something when in fact I'm actually creating harm. You either know the answers or you don't.
When you say, hey, we have Black students at a particular school who aren't performing at that school as well, the immediate assumption that you're making is, well, maybe it's because they're not smart enough, they're not good enough, or they don't belong here. Whereas it could be about the experience that they're having at that institution. Professors who believe that they're not intelligent enough, that they don't have the capability to do the work, that they see them as criminals, deviants, dangerous, up to no good, or they talk about them with the they statements. They're lazy, they don't care, they don't really belong here. They're only here for the financial aid.
I'm giving you actual facts.
No,
right?
I'm giving
So
you
can,
actual facts
we can
based upon
fantasize,
extensive
you can say, well, maybe they
research
just
that's
don't
been
feel
done.
good, but that's not the case. I mean, I went to university. I did not feel good, right? I didn't pull the best grades in high school, probably got into a better university than I should have gotten into based on my performance in high school. It wasn't because of my feelings. It's because I wasn't focused on it. And that, we're talking about a cultural problem, what's going on back at home, as was in my circumstance. And none of that is because of institutionalized policy. It almost seems like you guys refuse to accept that, Black students aren't performing well. You feel like you have to have this burden of responsibility when in fact, if you actually wanted to help, you would look at the facts, re-examine the fact that it's not helping anybody. It's not helping Black Americans to artificially place them into universities, and you'd make effective change.
But you're making the assumption that Black students are academically inferior, and they're not.
No,
They're
you
some of
are
our most
actually.
brilliant students
that's
that we
the
have.
basic. No. That you are making the assumption that they're inferior.
You
It
just
is
said that
why
they
you
don't
want
belong there.
policies. I'm talking about the students that are based on the policies that you are defending right now, saying that we should have these policies that let them into these universities, not based on their skill set, but based on the color of their skin. So you.
And that's exactly what these leftists do. All right. That's exactly what they're saying, is that we want to allow those students, now whether they're Black or brown or even white or purple, green, who cares, yellow, red, it doesn't freaking matter. It's a question of where are their grades? What is their aptitude? What are their scores on the tests that are utilized to gain entrance into these colleges? Because we have mountains and mountains of data that show that if you cannot academically perform in high school on the ACTs, on the SATs, on those standardized tests, then guess what? You're not going to be able to make it at some of these really high-level academic elite institutions. That's why they try to take the best of the best, whether or not they're white or Black or brown or green or purple or red or whatever hell color or whatever this guy is talking about. And yes, if you don't have the chops to make it on your grades, if you don't have the chops to make it on your SAT scores or SAT scores or whatever they are it's out there, then yes, you are not as intelligent as your peers are that are making those grades, that are making those test scores, and are able to function and gain entrance to those college and university. Even some of them eventually, on a small scale, even some of them for various reasons, okay, wash out of college. So it would be the same thing. I would be the same thing, what a white person can say to another white person, hey, how come I didn't get into Harvard? Well, what was your SAT score? I don't know. My SAT score was like, 12, 1500. Well, somebody else's, okay, was 2400 or 1600, the old test scores, right? And someone's is, and someone's is like 1000 or 1200 instead of 16. Well, there's a big difference there, folks. There's a huge difference.
People are assuming that they are inferior.
Comedian Tyler Fisher claims he has been turned down by 3 agencies because they said they just weren't looking for white men to book at this time. Tyler, thanks for being here.
Thank you, thank you. I identify as a Latino female now, so just adjust my pronouns. Yeah. So I've been in the entertainment business for 17 years, and I think what we're not talking about is children right now. Thank God I had about 5 years where this was not happening, where race was not pounded over your head. This is destroying people's lives.
Yeah.
The manager that told me, I can't work with you because you're white, he was a pawn, And so it's so sad because I feel so bad for kids who won't have that chance. They're gonna go, oh, I'm told I'm white, so I'm not gonna go for it. What would you say to a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, no matter what their race is? What would you actually tell them? Should you give your job up? And let me ask you directly, do you think it was justified for me to be told, we can't represent you, you don't have the chance to now compete for jobs because you're white? Yes or no? Was that okay or was that not okay?
I think that what is described
Yes
by
or no?
you.
Don't give me your little
Well, no, let me
bubble
finish.
wrap.
What
Ooh, he's ticked off, boy. He's pissed off, and he rightly so. This is discrimination. And like I said, it's just because you have a white majority country doesn't mean that you can't be, that there's not prejudice against you, that you can't have, that there is a power dynamic even in there. You're white, but that doesn't mean that you've got all the power dynamic. In this case, who's got the dynamic? It's the person who's hiring you. They've got the power, whether they're white, black, green, brown, red, purple, whatever color or culture or demographic or whatever they're coming from. So he's basically saying that, yeah, what do you tell the person? What do you tell the white child? I mean, critical race thinking, is that what critical race theory you're thinking? Is that what they're telling you? That the oppressor, you're white, you had privilege, you're the oppressor, they're black, they're brown, they were native Indians, they were here beforehand or whatever, and you're the oppressor, they're the oppressed, so guess what? And then you're telling the oppressed person, you know what, you might not be able to make it in this society because you're oppressed by the oppressor, you're oppressed by the white person. Where does that leave somebody? So now it teaches children, minorities, people of color or whatever, that hey, is everything stacked against me? Why do I even compete? Why do I even try? If you're telling me that I'm no good, I can't make it because everything is stacked against me because the white power dynamic has all the privilege and I have nothing. And he's just talking inside here. They're basically saying can't represent you because you're white. What would happen if he says we can't represent you because you're brown or black or Chinese or Asian or you're Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or whatever or Christian? Can you imagine the backlash that would have occurred if they would have said, we can't represent you because you're black or brown or a person of color or a woman or God forbid, LGBTQIA, MOUSE. Hey, how's that, how's the Disney thing going in Florida, by the way? Let's get back to this and see.
What is described by you, someone telling you that you can't get that job because you're white, does not sound right to me.
I did a show the other day, and they said, are you doing the next show? And I said, yeah. The guy said, I didn't know you were gay. He said, this is a gays only show. And so that's why Hollywood sucks right now, by the way, because they're not hiring based on talent. What do we do about heart surgeons, airplane pilots? Like, how far do we want to go with this? Do you want the best heart surgeon, or do you want somebody who you think may have had it bad as a kid, or maybe their great-great-grandfather? I mean, it's ridiculous.
I think it's important to state how affirmative action actually harms everybody involved. So when you put a black student on a campus or put them in a job and you've given them, preferential treatment in order for them to be there, you've actually robbed them of knowing they've gotten an opportunity based on their own merit. So they're questioning themselves and their place in the environment. And for all the non-people of color who are surrounding them, they now get to look at any person of color and go, I don't know whether or not you got this job based on merit or based on preferential treatment. And I know this to be true because I'm a biracial woman who has those thoughts now because of the culture that we're living in.
There's
Before we get to that, I mean, she is so right, Amala, Ekpunobi. She is so right in terms of what she's saying here. That how do you know how you got there? Did you get there on your merits? And even if you did get there on the merits, and you did, there's people around you that are going to say, you know what, with the affirmative action, maybe maybe you took somebody's seat that you shouldn't have taken. Maybe you got into this institution, maybe you got that job, or maybe you got that promotion, not because of merit, but because of the color of your skin, because of, your ethnicity, the demographics, the intersectionality, whether, you're gay or lesbian or transgender or whatever inside there, black, brown, whatever, in terms of that. And that's always going to happen. And then she mentioned, what Tyler was talking about, do we want the best? Or do we just want somebody, that's, mediocre? Every time you look for anything, most of the time people said, we want the best doctor, the best surgeon, the best, the teacher, the best. That's what we're looking for. Everything should be based on merit. It shouldn't be based on skin color. Otherwise, everyone's going to be looking over their shoulder going, I don't know if I really got this. Truly. Because in some people, they probably could care less. And others are probably going to be thinking, you know what? We don't know where that is. What do? You take your grades around with you, your SAT scores, your ACT scores. Somebody said, yeah, 4.0. I was a 5.3 out of a 6 scale. And look at my ACT scores. Oh, look at my SATs. I had 1,600. I had 1,500. Is that what we're going to do? No, nobody does that. But the thoughts are always going to be there from people that have gotten those positions, or people that think that they should have gotten those positions but didn't because their skin was white and the others were non-white. Anyways, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasir. If you've done so already, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. Let us know in your comments below what you think. And my final thought is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.